quiet, modern kitchen, where peaceful daily culinary routines mask a truly tempestuous and violent past. The fragile glass barrier shatters in silence, diving deep into the microscopic core of a single white crystal. Beyond the blinding white lies a prehistoric world, roaring beneath a bruised sky with untamed fury. Frantic waves smash against ancient stone, leaving behind invisible traces of a mineral destined to shape empires. A merciless sun rises to conquer the chaotic waters, evaporating the tempest to reveal absolute stillness. Heat forces the ocean to surrender its hidden essence, slowly weaving chaotic water into geometric perfection. Behold the silent birth of a dead landscape, where nothing grows, yet everything is eternally preserved. Perfect translucent cubes manifest from total chaos, nature crafting crystalline monuments of salt across a barren earth. Harsh winds sweep across the desolate white plains, carrying the bitter scent of an ocean long dead. Millions of tiny, jagged edges catch the blinding sunlight, waiting silently in the dirt for human hands to arrive. The shoreline becomes a silent battlefield of the elements, a place where water dies to give birth to stone. Thick, heavy brine pools in shallow, jagged depressions, concentrating a terrible power capable of defying decay itself. Shadows stretch endlessly across the silent white expanse, hiding the immense wealth buried beneath the cracked crust. One singular frozen tear of the ancient ocean rests, a silent, immortal mineral waiting patiently, born from extreme violence and absolute stillness. This barren landscape holds no life of its own, yet soon it will dictate the survival of empires. The ancient sun continues its relentless assault, bleaching the fractured earth into a blinding ocean of pure white silence. Intricate networks of frost-like ridges slowly emerge from the baking mud, forming a fragile crust of perfect crystalline architecture. A dry wind howls across the desolate plains, carrying no moisture but only the harsh whisper of a forgotten tide. Heat stress forces the thick crust to violently fracture, echoing softly like cracking glass, beneath a silent and unforgiving heaven. Darkness descends upon the barren flats, turning the blinding white expanse into a haunting sea of deep, metallic blue. Faint starlight catches the sharp, translucent edges of a singular cube, illuminating a geometry too precise for mere random nature. Morning light returns to bake the earth once more, restarting an eternal cycle of evaporation, designed to forge indestructible monuments. The last heavy drop of thick brine slowly vanishes, leaving behind a razor-sharp pyramid of flawless, white, mineral stone. Heat waves distort the distant horizon into a shimmering mirage, a ghostly reminder of the deep waters that once ruled here. Millennia of evaporation build thick, sedimentary layers, compressing chaotic storms into silent, solid layers, unyielding and forever frozen. Miles of jagged white terrain stretch without end, creating an absolute void where neither beast nor plant can survive. Perfect right angles dictate the molecular structure, an order born from the violent clash of fire and dark water. Yet this sterile wasteland holds a magnetic pull, silently summoning the most dangerous predator to ever walk the earth. Fine, powdery grains shift effortlessly in the breeze, whispering ancient secrets of preservation to the empty and unforgiving sky. The white desert waits in absolute terrifying stillness, preparing to transform from a natural wonder into the ultimate currency. The silent white desert feels a heavy footprint, beginning a desperate quest for survival against the rotting of flesh. Bare feet crush the pristine, crystalline crust into coarse dust, marking the exact moment humanity claimed the ocean's frozen tears. Nomadic tribes gather around the shimmering tidal pools under a blazing sun, scraping the precious white mineral from the cracked and baking earth. Jagged bone tools shatter the perfect geometric cubes into uneven shards, destroying nature's beautiful and flawless architecture to feed a growing biological hunger. Flames flicker in a primitive cave as hunters apply the white dust, preserving the freshly hunted bloody meat against the cruel passage of time. Tiny translucent crystals slowly dissolve into raw, crimson muscle fibers, locking away the essential vital nutrients and defying the absolute certainty of decay. Small settlements rise along the jagged and hostile coastlines, bound entirely by the eternal rhythm of the evaporating and receding tides. Thick clay pots boil murky seawater over a roaring, crackling fire, leaving behind a heavy crust of pure and indispensable white life. Winding dirt paths begin to scar the ancient, untouched wilderness, carrying this magical preserving stone into the deep and uncharted inland valleys. Heavy leather pouches bulge with the roughly harvested white crystals, carrying the heavy weight of survival across vast and unforgiving mountain ranges. Strangers meet at muddy crossroads to trade their absolute finest goods, exchanging their heavy, thick animal furs for handfuls of sacred ocean dust. Coarse salt spills through rough, dirt-stained fingers like white sand, establishing the very first primitive currency, built entirely upon flavor and preservation. Shallow man-made basins carve geometric patterns into the muddy coastal shores, forcing the wild, chaotic sea to surrender its wealth on human terms. A heavy wooden rake drags through the thick, white slurry, piling up mountains of shimmering crystals under a relentless and unforgiving midday sun. The humble mineral of survival mutates into an object of boundless greed, paving a dark and bloody way for the rise of ruthless empires. The mighty Roman legions pave their paths in stone, claiming total dominance over the earth and its white gold. Heavy wooden chariot wheels violently crush the jagged crystals, grinding pure mineral wealth deep into the muddy imperial roads. The legendary Via Salaria stretches across the vast empire, a massive trade artery entirely dedicated to moving preserved life. Coarse white granules spill freely from heavy leather pouches, staining the polished steel armor of tired and thirsty soldiers. Elite imperial legions demand their absolute rightful payment daily, refusing heavy silver for the vital magic of ocean stone. Heavy silver denarii crash down into mounds of white, forging the eternal bloody link between pure wealth and flavor. The word salarium echoes deeply through the crowded camps, birthing the modern concept of salary from raw ocean dust. Calloused hands violently grasp the sharp and precious stones, securing the vital, preserving energy needed for endless, brutal conquests. Massive stone fortresses rise to guard the shimmering basins, protecting the ultimate military asset from hungry and desperate enemies. Fresh crimson blood drips slowly onto perfectly square crystals, absorbing the bitter, violent cost of expanding the glorious empire. Noble senators feast under the glow of golden torches, measuring their massive political power in mountains of pure salt. A polished silver spoon delicately scatters the white dust, crowning a roasted beast with the ultimate symbol of luxury. Dust rises over the endless roads at golden twilight, hiding the exhausted faces of those who bleed for salt. One solitary white cube glows intensely against dark mud, holding the terrifying weight of human greed and endless war. The vast empire thrives on a fragile, crystalline foundation, waiting for the inevitable, tragic collapse of all worldly power. Massive wooden galleys dock at bustling Mediterranean ports, bringing the absolute finest white crystals to a hungry, ancient world. Coarse canvas sacks burst under immense, crushing pressure, spilling mountains of pure, gleaming white onto the sun-baked wooden docks. Crowded ancient markets transform into chaotic financial hubs, where the frozen tiers of ocean dictate the value of everything. Tarnished bronze scales meticulously balance the exact weight, trading heavy, gleaming yellow gold coins for handfuls of white mineral. Human life is shockingly reduced to mere commodities, traded openly in brutal public squares for sacks of preserving stone. Cold, rusted iron chains drag across the cobblestones, grinding perfectly formed white geometric cubes into a terrible, bloody dust. Wealthy merchants calculate their vast and growing fortunes, writing complicated ledgers upon parchment scrolls to track the white gold. Black ink drips slowly onto an ancient parchment, sealing the brutal and binding contracts that trade flesh for flavor. Massive camel caravans traverse the unforgiving endless deserts, carrying the ocean's heavy, preserved magic into deep and uncharted lands. Heavy hooves sink deeply into the burning sand, leaving behind a faint, sparkling trail of dropped and precious crystals. Great African kingdoms rise to unimaginable, dizzying wealth, exchanging heavy slabs of pure salt for equal weights of gold. Huge, solid rectangular blocks reflect the intense sun, showcasing the immense and terrifying power of a dried-up sea. Desperate shadows move quietly through the deep night, hiding stolen pouches of ocean stone from ruthless and armed guards. Trembling fingers clutch the tiny, stolen geometric cubes, knowing a single dropped white crystal could cost a human life. The lust for preservation breeds an insatiable hunger, pulling humanity down into total darkness to harvest the bitter tears. Deep beneath the Earth's crust lies a sprawling, dark labyrinth where sunlight is never touched. The silent, white walls. Rusted iron pickaxes violently shatter the pristine, compressed geometric veins, raining sharp, translucent shards onto the wet cavern floor. Thousands of hollow eyes stare into the suffocating, endless shadows, breathing in a toxic dust of eternal, pure preservation. Blistered hands bleed freely onto the unyielding, rough mineral surface, staining the pure white wealth with deep crimson sorrow. Cavernous halls echo with the rhythmic strikes of desperate men, carving massive cathedral arches into the heart of salt. A single bead of salty human sweat slowly falls down, merging instantly with a crystal, born from ancient seas. Wooden elevators creak dangerously under the immense weight of stone, hauling the bitter white harvest to the greedy surface. Thick hemp ropes fray against the sharp, abrasive cavern walls, threatening to snap and drop the heavy, precious cargo. Above ground, a different hell burns under the blazing sun, as prisoners scrape the crust of dying, shallow lakes. Blinding white reflections sear the retinas of exhausted, broken laborers, leaving them entirely blind to the beauty they gather. Armed guards patrol the fragile, gleaming borders of evaporation ponds, protecting the absolute monopoly of the ruthless sovereign kings. A heavy leather whip cracks against a bruised, trembling back, sending tiny white dust particles flying into the wind. Entire villages are forcibly displaced to work the barren fields, chained forever to the cruel rhythm of evaporating tides. Coarse, raw crystals stick painfully to open, weeping physical wounds, turning nature's ultimate preserving cure into a terrible torture. The relentless machine of human greed grinds bone into dust, ensuring the royal tables remain covered in white luxury. Gold glimmers under the grand chandeliers of the palace, while the absolute true currency of power remains pure white. Precious rubies and diamonds encase the humble ocean tears, elevating a simple preserving mineral into a divine royal right. Beyond the high palace walls, a brutal winter bites, forcing starving peasants to boil dirt for a single taste. Desperate, freezing fingers scrape the rough, barren wooden bowls, fighting a deeply agonizing invisible war against absolute biological decay. Ruthless tax collectors shatter the quiet peace of dawn, demanding the heavy and impossible toll for the white gold. Heavy red wax seals the terrifying and absolute law, criminalizing the ocean's freely given gift to feed boundless greed. Smugglers swing from the high dark gallows at midnight, paying the ultimate and brutal price for tasting the sea. Coarse hemp fibers grip tightly against the freezing wind, trapping the tiny stolen white crystals that condemn to man. Generations of silent suffering finally ignite a roaring flame, pushing the starved and desperate masses toward a bloody revolution. Fierce, glowing embers violently strike the pure geometric crystals, melting the frozen ancient ocean tears with pure human rage. Heavy iron-bound doors splinter under the immense, crushing pressure, spilling the heavily guarded white wealth into the bloody streets. Jagged splinters of heavy, dark oak pierce the white, shattering the fragile and arrogant illusion of eternal, absolute control. The oppressive taxes fall alongside the severed royal heads, painting the cold and bitter snow with a tragic crimson. Warm, fresh blood dissolves the perfect translucent cubic geometry, absorbing the ultimate and tragic cost of hoarding preserved life. Empires crumble into ash beneath the heavy dark sky, yet the tiny silent ocean crystals will outlast them all. Mighty empires fade into quiet, forgotten dust, leaving behind the exact same landscape they once bled to conquer. Broken marble columns rest in silent ruin, while tiny, translucent cubic ocean stones remain absolutely perfect and unchanged. The brutal ancient mines are completely abandoned, echoing only with the haunting whisper of forgotten ghosts and shadows. Rust consumes the heavy forged iron pickaxes, returning the violent and greedy tools back into the hungry earth. Desolate trade routes vanish beneath the sand, hiding the deep and bloody footprints of countless exhausted, marching legions. A white crystal falls upon fractured bone, proving that human flesh is temporary, but the mineral is eternal. The vast dark ocean continues to churn, totally indifferent to the tragic rise and fall of human kings. Restless waves crash against the jagged shore, restarting the endless ancient chemical cycle of violent evaporation and creation. Sunlight aggressively bakes the shallow tidal pools, forging the absolute very first building blocks of flavor and preservation. Microscopic cubes lock themselves into flawless geometry, achieving a cold and beautiful perfection, born from chaos and heat. Fast forward to a quiet, modern kitchen, where peaceful daily culinary routines mask a truly tempestuous and violent past. A simple glass shaker tips slightly downward, releasing a gentle shower of tiny, white stones onto warm food. We casually consume the tears of oceans, completely unaware of the heavy historical weight resting upon our tongues. One singular brilliant crystal catches the light, holding the silent memories of empires within its sharp, translucent walls. The chaotic sea slumbers within the stone, waiting eternally to be tasted again at the very end of time.